So I keep hearing a couple of those, and forgive me, right, for being the new kid on the block, but consensus mechanisms I remember you mentioning. So there's proof of work, proof of stake, and proof of history. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What or how, or is there a super quick crash course someone would be willing to give me on what the heck each of those things are and how they work?
I guess I'll start with proof of history, like the latest one, so to say, because well, technically it's not a consensus mechanism. It's a way to keep time in Solana, because like Solana is trying to be the first scalable blockchain that relies only on hardware specifics, performance of hardware, and network connectivity. So like, according to the white paper, theoretically, Solana is able to handle 700,000 transactions per second on a 1 gigabit network. That's the official figures. Now, this is not. I suppose this has never been tested, on a larger scale, rather than just on a local network. But this performance is a product of several innovations that the Solana team came up with. And one of them is proof of history. This is the way to keep time in blockchain, because blockchain is basically just a bunch of computers talking to each other. So those computers, they have their own internal clocks. So you can't really, it's an adversarial system. So you can't really trust, other node in the network, because they might be malicious. So obviously you can't also trust, the time they're telling. So like in case of Ethereum, the people that run the node, they're called miners, and the miners can influence the timestamps. So imagine a smart contract that that's say a lottery, and so you can either win or lose based on whether the timestamp is odd or even. So a miner can influence the internal clock of the node to basically steer the result of the lottery. Now this is not possible in Solana because the time is kept by the network. So what it does, it uses something that's called a verifiable delay function. So a verifiable delay function, it's something that it's just a function that requires a certain number of operations to complete. So you can also always know that when you run this function, this number of operation was completed. So you can peg it to seconds and real time, but the principle is that the number of operations that happened between one point at a time and another, and with the first point being the start of the function and the other being the end of the function. So one of the Solana white paper argues that one of the biggest challenges in distributed decentralized systems is agreeing on time and clock synchronizations between those. So this decentralized clock is used by proof of stake because, Solana is technically proof of stake with extra stuff, and this extra stuff is proof of history. So proof of history is used to enhance proof of stake in a way that with proof of stake you vote that this this block is considered valid. And if enough nodes agree on that, this block is considered valid. So proof of history can help to keep track of time of the vote. So you can ensure that vote is not stale. So it's not too old. So it's for the block that was mined at this exact time, and not something that was earlier or gonna be in the future. Because if you do that, you're considered malicious, and you're gonna get a hard time because your whole stake might get slashed, or a share of your stake might gonna get slashed. And that means it's just gonna be burned by the security guard of the network, by the mechanism. So I guess the bottom line here is that proof of history is not a consensus mechanism. This is something that helps proof of stake be even more secure, more efficient, and the whole blockchain to be even more performant.
That's very cool. Is proof of work still sort of in the picture, or is that sort of a separate way, far side one?
It is still on the picture, of course.
Okay.
I mean, proof of work was one of the first to come around. And basically it's the oldest one. So the idea of proof of work is the following. So there is a network, a P2P network, where all the nodes are connected, and they are trying to compete each other to get a block. So basically a block is just like a folder where all the transactions are put in there, and they are doing some calculations on it and getting a hash. Hash basically is just a summary of all the content of that block. The idea on for example, on Bitcoin or the old Ethereum is that you basically keep generating random numbers until you find a hash which achieves a result. This result, for example, on Bitcoin can be a lot of zeros before the hash, okay? So once you get the result, you publish it on the P2P network, and all the nodes verify it and agree on that being the new block. And then everyone will start again. So looking for new transactions, computing a block, and putting it on top of that. And the cool thing about it is, for example, as Piotr said, miners can manipulate all that metadata, the block timestamp, some content as well. They can even rearrange transactions to extract value from it. And that's something that we are still concerned about it, and some issues can happen. So for example, MEV, which is a most extractable value type of attack, they are doing basically that, trying to rearrange transactions in a way to extract value from it. So imagine that you are sending money to someone, and now you say, no, you are not sending that much money, you are sending less money, for example. Kind of like that.
Regarding the proof of stake, just to have a general idea, many blockchain use what is called the delegate proof of stake. What does it mean? Instead of miners, or the new miners are called validators. So, depending on the blockchain, there are like a top number of validator that has the more stake. I mean, if the validator has more money staked, it's more likelihood that he's going to be selected to propose a block with transactions. So what is the idea behind the proof of stake? People stake the money on those validators. A validator is selected and he is going to propose this block with different transactions. The other validators are going to validate that if the transaction is good, is accurate or not. If they agree that it's accurate, it's going to be added to the blockchain. Otherwise, there is a round 2 voting with another proposer, and the process start again. So the idea at the end is that if a validator is malicious and it accepts a malicious block or malicious transaction, that validator is going to be punished. So the idea is because they are staking their own money and other people stakes, they have to behave correctly, otherwise they are going to be punished. And the punishment, you are going to reduce the stake that is in this validator.
Wow.